Hello everyone. Today we have another video from the series Salesforce Walk and Talk. And today's item for our discussion is, let's say, recruitment. So let's discuss some kind of best practices that we need to implement in our company in order to make sure that, let's say, here we are not losing a company reputation. So first of all, when we, let's say, publishing our job somewhere and we are starting to look for candidates, we need to make sure that we cover it as much details as possible in that position. Like for example, if you are looking person for the specific project and here is the following technical stack is required, so then we need to highlight it in the resume, because sometimes we could see that there are some kind of differences in the positions that are posted, and sometimes companies looking just in general for the people with a specific stack. Sometimes they are looking for the person for the specific project, and it's better to always highlight it, right? Because sometimes people looking just for senior Salesforce engineer in general, right? Sometimes companies looking for the person who is, for example, specialist in, for example, insurance, right? Or for example, in the banking area, and it might be, let's say, a little bit different. You could find the Salesforce senior developer, right, who have, like a very good experience, but in the telco area, for example, and it will be not exactly what you are looking for if you did not specify it in your job description. So next item is related to the situation when people trying to apply to that position. So when persons trying to apply to that position, there should be some kind of, let's say, auto response, which will let them know, hey, thank you very much for applying. We got your resume, we will review it properly, and we will come back to you in the specific period of time, right? And it's all good. If you will mention that specific period of time in our auto response. So usually it's from 1 to 2 weeks, right? And after that, there should be some action. So that means that if you are really started to review resume of the person, right, and you could see that, for example, that person is not suitable for that position because of some, let's say, reasons. Like, for example, there is no some language requirement, or the person don't have, for example, experience in banking area or wherever. So what you need to do next, right, it's you need to write it somewhere, right? What is the reason why you decided to not, like, moving forward with that specific person? So then when you are responding to that person back in, like some specific period of time that you already notified the person that you will respond, so after that, what you need to do, right, it's you need to send to that person the reason why you decided to reject his resume. So the reason for that is in the following. So I was able to see in the past when there was a situation when people tried to apply through LinkedIn, and for example, they applied for kind of position, for example, Salesforce senior specialist, for example, in a telecommunication area, right? And so after review of the resume of that person, there was feedback. All right, so it looked like that person does not have enough experience in that specific area, so we decided to reject, right? And the person was notified what was the reason, so he just got some specific, or very general, I would say, response that, hey, sorry, we could not consider you, and we will go and look for other candidates, right? So that automatic email actually contains no information for the person, what he needs to improve, right? What is not enough in his experience, or maybe he could clarify if he really have experience in the specific area. Because from that example that I'm trying to bring on the table, it was with a specific person who was, let's say, a big expert in the specific area, right? And when his resume was rejected via recruiter, he was able to communicate directly with the managers of that company and demonstrated to these managers his portfolio and his experience, and they hired him. And that person was, let's say, rejected by recruiter, right? Because recruiter, after reviewing the resume, was not able to, let's say, confirm with the person. Let's say it looked like you have not enough experience in your resume. Could you please confirm that you have, like, experience in that field, or something like this? And but the situation was in the following: that person sent it to the recruiter, maybe not the absolute latest version of the resume, whereas, like, one of the projects where that person was working for 3 years was not mentioned, and that's why he was, let's say, rejected. So that means that, like, if some kind of person applying for the specific position, first of all, from the person side, he needs to prepare the most, let's say, updated resume, right, and send it to the to the company, right? And from company side, if they could not see that that person, for example, have enough experience, or for example, they could see that, for example, there are no some kind of language, for example, mentioned in the resume, right? It's always there is an option to communicate with that person, right? Communicate with the candidate, ask for additional details, and do it like this, because like, at this moment it looked like a black box, right? You're sending your resume, you're just waiting, and then some magic result, right? Yes or no? And it's not always the case, right? Better sometimes to write the candidate, ask him, like what is the reason, right? Let's say why you applied for that position. In your resume we could not see, for example, such kind of experience. Could you please elaborate on that? And that person might provide you some additional details. Also, if, for example, even after discussion with the candidate, you still could see that that person does not have enough let's say skills or enough experience in some specific area, let that person know, say, hey, sorry, we cannot consider you for now, because we are looking for the person who's, for example, working in the area with a Node.js for 5 years. In your resume we could see only one project for 2 years period, so we're thinking that it's not enough. So once you will gain more experience, we will be, let's say, glad to discuss it more with you. So I would believe that kind of feedback, first of all, will be good in terms of the company, right? Because company will be transparent to the potential candidates. You will let them know what was the gap, why they were not considered, and also for potential candidates, right? It will be good to see that, let's say, companies actually tried to see and like hire him, but they could see that it's still not enough, right, at this moment. So person will be able to learn something, right, and maybe come back in a couple of years with much bigger experience, right, and he will understand, let's say, what is required. So I would believe that it's one of like very good items to bring into the corporate culture. So next item I think is related to the situation when the person was selected by recruiter, and when we have some kind of let's say technical interview or management interview, and idea here is in the following, right? So here is something scheduled, like for example interview with the person. And after that interview, for example, person was notified, right? So you will, let's say, we will respond you back with some kind of response, right? Or even sometimes there are no any kind of follow-up, which will mention something like this, that we will come back to you with response. And after that interview, actually nothing happens. It's also, like best, not a good practice, right, from the companies, and they are losing, let's say, their face here, right, and their reputation. Like for example, after technical interview, person thinking that everything was good, but for example, company decided that they have also some kind of another person who is much stronger, right? So that interview that we are discussing, let's say, was let's say also good, right, but not like at that kind of level as another person completed it. Right, so in that case you still decided to proceed with another person, and you're just not responding completely to that person who just passed it on the good level, right? So that person understands that he passed it on the good level, he waiting that something will happen, and actually nothing, right? Or for example, you continue to looking through other candidates, like, and you're at this moment not ready to respond to this candidate to confirm that he's moving forward. So in that case also, please be transparent, right? So just let the candidate know, hey, like it was on the good level, so here is the result of your technical interview. We identified, so in those areas you are good, but also at this period we decided for, like additional 3 weeks to look for another candidates. And if at the end we will see that you are the best possible person for that position, we will definitely contact you, right? At least give something to that person, because what I was able to see for some companies, right, so they are trying to review, let's say, tons of candidates at the same time. They are not providing the response, right, person at the same time. I could see that for 2 weeks period, for 3 weeks period, there are no any kind of response from the company, and they are going and looking for next companies, right? And when this company finally finished, like candidates review and decided to come back to one of them, he's already, like found a job, right? So because it's not how the things work, right? So there was no feedback to the person, right? No communication about the plans. So there was everything missing, right? And that shows company as a company where there are not good processes. And even I was able to see this for very, let's say, big companies, right? With, let's say, it looked like good reputation, right? And it's good for them that people not always go into the glass door or somewhere and not sharing their experience, right, about how, let's say, badly it's going on, right? If you pass it everything well and then, like there are just no response for months, right? It's not how it should work. So So the general idea which I'm trying to bring on the table through entire the discussion, right? It's please be transparent in terms of the company, right? Specify your rule. So first of all, right, best practices. When some person applied, so thank that person for applying and for the interest to that position. So then provide them information in which time, period of time you will provide some kind of response to them. So next item, right? Once you review it, the candidate resume, and you could not see some, for example, specific, let's say, tools or experience in something, right? Just let that person know, hey, you know, like, is your resume up to date? Can you please tell us a little bit, let's say, if you have experience in that area, because we are looking for the person specially in that area, or for example, with such kind of experience. So could you please let us know some details about it, right? So it's next item. So then when you decided, for example, to reject at this moment, please let the person know what is the problem, right? What is not enough, what needs to be improved. And and sometimes even you could provide some kind of training materials to that person. Maybe the person will be really motivated, right? And in half of year or less he will pass these materials, trainings, right? And maybe he will be able to come back, or at least he will be thankful for you to letting him know how he could improve himself in order to apply for the similar position in the future, even in not your company but in general in the market. So next point, it's when you decided to proceed with a candidate, right? And you gave, for example, an opportunity to be participant on the interview, right? So that person passed the interview or not passed it, right? Please do the same, right? Be transparent. Send back results to that person. Hey, you know, like our technical expert decided that, for example, some areas that are really key areas for the project are not yet covered in your experience or in your background. So we decided to look, you know, like for other candidates. And thank you a lot for your participation. So please feel free to cover this area and come back to us. So in that case, let's say, as you could see, each stage of the interview will be transparent. So every candidate will know what is happening, all right? And it will increase, let's say, well known of the company brand, right? And everyone will understand that, you know, like how transparent that process is, right? You will receive good marks on the Glassdoor and other services where people usually agents their review of, you know, how the process of the hiring in that company is going on, and so on and so forth, and especially from the people's experience, right? So some of these guys might be in the future, for example, even not, if not now, they will be your employees, right? And if at this moment you already doing things badly, so it might have influence in the future. So let's try to follow these best practices and incorporate them in, let's say, recruitment.